Hey, welcome to Q&A, where you ask your questions on faith and life, and I do my best to give a biblical perspective. Well, let's jump into today's question. There'll be one more question after this before Christmas, and then that's it for the summer break. So here's the question. What is the difference between absolute and relative truth, and does it matter? Certainly, I understand that why this is an issue for many people, because we do live in an age where increasingly truth is relativized for very particular reasons, in my view. You asked what is the difference between absolute and relative truth, without getting into deep philosophical discussion. And this is a philosophical point in many ways, and I accept that I'm giving a high level view that there's many things that we should really reference, but we just don't have time to in the context of Q&A. But so with that in mind, let me try and outline, without going too deep, the difference between absolute and relative truth. Absolute truth is exactly that. It's universal. It's absolute. It doesn't require me to believe in it for it to be true. It doesn't depend upon me agreeing with it, accepting it. It's true universally, whether I want to acknowledge it or not. Take, for example, gravity, something that we live with every day. Whether I recognize it, whether I understand it, whether I even accept it or not, it doesn't change the truth of it. Gravity exists no matter how I choose to relate to it. And that's just an example of absolute truth. Relative truth, on the other hand, is the idea that what is true for one person doesn't have to be true for somebody else. For example, two people can look at a painting and one can see beauty and the other can see drabness. Both are right because beauty is a relative truth. And we could give other examples as well, but they highlight the difference. Absolute truth is objective, relative truth is subjective. It's based on cultural context, it's based on personal and societal perspectives, and by definition is constantly changing. And there is and I understand that that there's a tension between those two in many ways. You can't say it's one or the other. Beauty, for example, as I say, that's relative. My wife looks at painting. She loves art, and she'll see a beauty. She'll see things in a Rembrandt and a Picasso that I just see paint and canvas. It's just not my cup of tea. So yet the truth, my truth and her truth in that context is relative because it's personal. And yet it doesn't take away from the absolute truth that exists around us. The problem, I think, is that when we try and reduce universal truth to relative truth in order to try and avoid its demands upon us. For example, if you hold to that truth is relative, then it means that there's no moral absolutes. That morality is defined by society. It's defined by, it's subjective in that context. We can draw the boundaries wherever we choose to draw them at any point we want, wherever we can get agreement in that context. So, for example, abortion, euthanasia, prioritizing one group of people over another, and on it goes. These are examples of relative truth that have given way to moral relativism. We determine what's right and what's wrong based on our idea of what truth is, what's right, what's truthful, what's not, and that's the problem with relative truth, with relativism. The problem is, for something to be moral, it requires, in my view, that there be an objective standard, something universal. Otherwise, it's chaos, and there's no means to mediate or to arbitrate conflict between two relative positions. For example, one group says that it's okay to kill old people, another group says it's not. Both are right with relativism, whether it be moral relativism or relativism in regards to truth. The two are connected. You can't separate them. Both are right. But that's not what happens, because truth isn't relative. That's the problem we have. I think it was C.S. Lewis that once said that a man does not call a line crooked unless he has an idea of what a straight line is. In other words, there has to be something that's universal, something that's absolute. In the same way, people don't try, in my view, again, to redefine what is right and what is wrong unless they want to move away from what they know to be right, and they don't want to conform to it, or they don't want to conform their views, their worldview, their moral code to it. The problem with relative truth is that it makes each of us our own lawgiver. And we see that we see this reference, for example, in Scripture in 2 Timothy. Let me bring it up. 2 Timothy chapter 4, Paul says that time is coming when people no longer listen to sound and wholesome teaching. They will follow their own desires and will look for teachers who will tell them whatever their itching ears want to hear. They'll reject the truth and chase after myths. In other words, this is not a new problem. This is an age-old problem where people try and relativize truth and therefore relativize the moral code in order to suit themselves, to suit what they want to call good, what they want to call bad, so that they don't have to be held accountable to a higher standard, to a standard other than their own. The fact that there's a debate highlights the fact that there is tension, and that tension shouldn't surprise us, because in John 14 Jesus says, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." He's objective. He stands outside that which we make for ourselves. The truth of the gospel, the truth of creation, the truth as revealed by God, and the moral code that flows from that. It's not relative. It's something that's outside of us and that we need to conform ourselves to. That's why, in my view, again, the rejection of absolute truth is a rejection of God as people seek to justify themselves and their own desires. So that's why, to answer your question, it matters, because without it, we just do what seems right in our own eyes and we turn away from the things that have been established for our good and for our benefit. So yeah, in a nutshell, in a very high level view, without going deep, that's the difference, and that's why it matters. So, hey, love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. But we are just, 5 or 6 days away from Christmas, so just watch out for one more. We'll let you know when we open Slido up again. But until then, God bless.